skip into about 9 minutes if you don't want to go over Colossus's abilities. Hey there guys, so I'm going to try to go over this one, not like too fast, but I'm going to try to go over it quickly. This is like the third time recording this intro for the video and something has gone wrong every single time. So let's just get right into this one. So today's video is going to be about Colossus. He's a champion that I enjoy using a lot, just very high damage, so many immunities, just a lot that he can do with a very simple kit to use. But he has a lot that he can do with this simple kit, which is always a nice thing to have. Because most of his kit, it's not about like doing anything specific, it's basically about putting him into a fight and maybe bringing along like one synergy if you really need extra damage. So let's start from the top with his sig. So when you have an immunity, which he has 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 immunities, so you have 6 different ways for this to trigger, for the chance to get an armor up buff when you get an immunity, and you can turn your temporary ones into a permanent. 45% might not seem like the highest chance, but with how fast he can gain his armor ups through his SP2, through parrying, and through the immunities, you can really start to stack them up very quickly and build a lot of permanent ones very quickly. So I think understanding Colossus's role in the game is important before we get into like the rest of his kit. He might not be the champion that you use if you're like a super endgame player with a very stacked roster and a ton of stuff. I think he brings a lot of value to any roster just based on damage and a ton of immunities. It's just also like fun to play in my opinion, but that's always going to change depending on who you are, right? But the ability just to have all these immunities in one champion is always good. He can cover Biohazard, any Incinerate, Cold Snap, Bleed, Frostbite node that gives you damage, any champion that like gives you a negative effect when you have a debuff on you. He covers all these debuffs, including Armor Break, which there's not like too many Armor Break immune champions. There is the tech condition, but not too many like tech champions that really you need to worry about that with, maybe just like Warlock or something. And so you also gain armor up buffs based on the number of X-Men champions on the team, which isn't something like too big to worry about because you build his armor ups very quickly anyway. So you can build up to 20 of your armor ups, which are not too big individually, but at 20 is quite a thick bit of armor, which makes him very tanky, with 60% block proficiency not being the highest, but the ability to stack that much armor gives you a lot. You can gain some armor. Oh wait, no, that's the AAR one. When you have ability accuracy reduced, you gain combat power rate, which is actually kind of handy. It's not like the best thing to use because you don't want to like have a matchup where you're not having as much ability accuracy, because he doesn't actually counter it, he just gains a benefit from it, kind of like Guardian. So in a fight like Domino, you basically just have 100% energy or 100% power rate for the entire fight, so you build power super fast in those matchups, which is really nice. You have a damage cap on him, sorry about that, plus the armor ups, which make him very tanky, so which gives him a fair bit of survivability. Every single parry, you gain an armor up buff, which is why I said you can build your armor ups very quickly. With only a max of 20 parries in a fight is very easy to achieve like very quickly, especially if you're like spamming heavy, which he is a fairly good champion to do that with, but he's not locked into that playstyle, which is nice. You can actually use him without the parry mastery and get the effects of the parry mastery through the stun. Not the best way to play him because just use the parry mastery. But at only 1500 damage, but it's still a nice benefit. It gives you damage every time you land a parry, which is still always nice, so that's good. So for your special and heavy attacks, you gain attack rating based upon your armor, so that does not count for the fury which comes from his heavy attack, which is even bigger than this one, but it increases the damage on all your special attacks by a fair bit, so it makes them hit hard even if you can't stun the opponent, which is why I don't think he's a champion that's reliant on stuns. Stuns just help him a fair bit, because when you stun, you purify the stun and you gain a 10,000 damage or 10,000 attack rating fury, which is quite a bit, right? This is a rank 3 still, so that's obviously not what it is for like a 5-star or something like that. But right, his attack is just under 3,000, so it's an over 300% fury basically, and it lasts all the way through your special attack too. It lasts longer than your heavy attack, so your heavy attack gains up to 16,000 damage. Not damage, jeez. 16,000 attack rating, which is quite a lot. The special one is the main way you can ramp up your indefinite furies if you don't have the dupe, but outside of that it's not really too useful. The stun's not quite long enough, I think, to use any of the chain stun cheeses in like power reserves and stuff. The special 2 is the main one you use because it has a 50% chance to gain another armor up, and so that counts for every single armor up stack you have, which is how you stack past 20. Once you get to, you stack them, and then like once you're at like 20, let's say you get the perfect, like not perfect, you get the standard RNG, so you get 10 every time. So then you get 10, so you have 30, and if you're able to get back quick enough, then you go from 30 to 45, and then it keeps stacking up. And you can, not easily, but you can definitely maintain like 60 armors in a super long fight. I think if you haven't seen it, I don't know where they are on his channel anymore, but KT1 did a couple streams with Colossus and like full team synergy, and you can maintain super high armor up the whole way, and you're like damage capping with like 4 stars if you really play it perfectly. It's kind of crazy. The special 3 just activates tank mode. It makes it so they never crit basically with the 2100 fatigue, and when you're not critting against Colossus you do like no damage because of all of his armor up buffs and all of his armor rating, just making it super hard to deal damage. Then for the second part of it, you gain extra damage resistance, damage mitigation, and you're unstoppable while blocking. It doesn't count as like an actual unstoppable effect, so it doesn't work for something like can't stop, won't stop, but it does allow you to like bank off of it, so like you block and instead of a parry, you're just unstoppable, so you can immediately counter in and stuff like that. The main special you use is your special 2 unless you specifically need to like tank a lot of damage with your special 3. That's the main thing. So then the biggest downside that some people try to bring up for Colossus is he's reliant on synergies, but there's a lot worse champions than Colossus who have a worse synergy partner and get more love than Colossus. If you told someone to bring in Omega Red to make a champion do 2% more damage for every single armor up and they can easily have like 30 armor ups, I think they would take it for most champions, but I don't know, people don't like bringing in the Omega Red synergy. They say he's too dependent on like a full team, where yeah, if you're bringing in like Emma Frost, Juggernaut, and Omega Red, it's obviously a lot better, but even with that quad team, it still gives you one free spot for a different utility. But in my opinion, you really just need the Omega Red synergy for absolutely insane damage, because as I said, it's very easy to get to the 20 armor ups and get past 20 armor ups, and you're getting 2% attack rating for every single armor up. So it's kinda, and it gives you a faster ramp up with giving you an extra armor up buff, only the one time, but it still does give you an extra armor up buff at the start, so it's kinda nice. His Professor X synergy is actually really good for team building because it just gives you 18% poison resistance off the bat and 72 by the end, so you can kind of heal off of a poison if it's not like the biggest poison in the world, right? Especially if you have like high willpower, so it's a nice synergy just to reduce that damage, allows other champions to take stuff like that. I don't personally think he needs the full like 4-man team. I really think Colossus, Omega Red, and then that gives you 3 more spots that you can bring something in like Ghost and Wasp and Hood, right? Like you can fit so much other utility in 3 spots, it's actually crazy. But people like to make it sound like Colossus needs a 5-man team when he really just needs himself and Omega Red, and even by himself he's still a pretty solid champion, but with Omega Red his damage is absolutely insane, and it's not like you're bringing in a bad champion to synergize him with, right? You're not bringing in like Beast, you're not bringing in a weird champion, you're bringing in Omega Red, who people already love. So that will just about wrap this part up. I'll be seeing you guys in just a second. I hope that kind of goes over his abilities pretty well. Okay, and here I just wanted to show off, this first like couple clips is going to be just some of his utilities. So this is his just pure incinerate immunity to match up like Bishop. It also shows how tanky he is. That's a 10 prowess special, and it doesn't do more than 1,000 damage. And then you just drop a 60,000 crit, you know? Just normal things, very normal champion things. So I sped a lot of this up just because I didn't want it to take like too long. This was just kind of to show off his immunity and the ability to tank like Bishop Special 1, which can hit kind of hard. This is the same quest, the next fight over. So this is something that you can use Bishop for. So when you use Bishop, when you use the parry heavy with him, it removes the stun, but it counts as if the stun is there. So they'll never auto block you, they'll never evade you, they'll never do anything that can't trigger if the stun is there. So like evades and auto blocks, usually you have to not be stunned for it to happen, so he's able to just bypass all that. And you can even do a medium into it, and here I show that I believe it even lasts through the special that he throws, which is really, really nice. And I think I showed the team. The team is just the Omega Red synergy, because I think most of the other synergies are really nice, but they are not needed whatsoever. The Omega Red synergy just pumps you up with damage, and that's just about it. So this is just showing off a couple of his like uses, in my opinion, right? Incinerate immunity, so he's actually a decent bishop counter because you don't deal with the incinerates, and then you just tank the hits that he gives you. This next clip is a pretty short one because it's a rank 5 against a rank 5 5-star, so it's fast. This is just to show off his power gain. So right, Domino at the start of the fight applies to you a minus 15% ability accuracy reduction. So if you look at that, just how much power you're gaining per hit, it's as if you're playing with an energized node. And so then you just rush up to your SP2, and if you have like Emma Frost synergy and you have synergies going in with that, it's absolutely crazy. So this next one is, I cut out the first fight because it was against a Black Bolt, which is just a super basic champion, so it's kind of a boring fight, so I wanted to show the more interesting ones against Professor X and against Scarlet Witch. So this is in 7.1.1, I think it is, and it's a lane. It has Hazard Shift Cold Snap and Hazard Shift Incinerate, so you're immune to both of those as Colossus. And the way Hazard Shift whatever the node is, I can't remember why I can't remember its name, but it applies a damaging debuff to you almost every single hit, which with Colossus and the way his Sig ability works, especially if you're high Sig, you're gaining an armor up almost every single hit, and then with the Omega Red synergy, you're gaining attack base per armor. Like if you look on the left, parry, immune, armor up. Like just every time I'm tapping her, basically, I'm getting an armor up buff just from attacking her. So you're able to build your armor up super quick. I'm not even to SP2 and I've barely parried, and I was already at 20 armors. I'm now up to 30. So you're just able to stack up your debuffs or your armor ups really quickly. And for a matchup like this, even if it had some other weird nodes, there's a lot that he can do here. Like let's say it also had buffed up in combination with this, because right, like let's say you wanted to ghost this type of lane. Let's say they throw like buffed up in there to make it so you have to get your buffs up with Ghost. With Colossus, you already have your buffs. So then I wanted to show another fight in this same quest because it had an interesting interaction. So you want to have immunities. You need an immunity to Iceman, and then there's the superiority node. Oh, so this is 7.2, not 7.1. My bad. So it also has the parry, or the heavy. It's ebb and flow, kind of like in War, but it doesn't give a fury, it gives a cruelty, which still plays well with Colossus because he gets a lot of extra damage when he crits anyway. And with the way Flail works, it gives you a debuff, but you're immune to a lot of debuffs. And then with the way the superiority node works, whenever you gain a buff, you remove any debuff. And Colossus gains a buff every single time you parry, or whenever I dex Iceman's SP1. So you're immune to the cold snap when I got hit there, you're immune to the one at the start. You're just able to be immune to everything, basically, that this fight's throwing at you. It's kind of weird that you don't gain the buff there, but because of the way the permanent armor up buff works, you remove that buff there. So yeah, he's an absolute buff gaining machine. He has a lot of damage with the Omega Red synergy, like casually hitting 10k mediums with only 20 armors. And as you've seen in this fight, it's very easy to get over the 20 armors. So that's just one of the things I really like about him. This is the first time we saw the node. I don't think I show it there either. This one has Icarus attached with it, so it's good if I mix in a fair few heavies here. I miscount on this first one, so I don't do that mistake again, I think, throughout the fight. But this is kind of just to show how high his damage does get with his armors, because Sabretooth, when you're using a brute force type of champion, regens a ton. Like he's regenning 2.5, 2.7 every single tick, which is 5k every second. Like his health is shooting up when you're not hitting him. So you need to have a lot of damage to be able to smash through it, or else he'll just gain too much health back and just becomes a really, really long fight. But Colossus is absolutely smashing with only a single synergy. I did all of it with only one synergy. For like one thing, I brought a second synergy. But I wanted this just to show how good he is, like, just with Omega Red, because look at all the different champions I brought. I brought CGR, Archangel, and Hulkbuster. So this is the final boss of 6.3.3, which a lot of people, when it came out, there weren't like too many perfect options for it. You're like Warlock, Guillotine 2099, maybe even like something like Hyperion, but the issue is the aggression armor break node, or the armor break node. If you don't hit them every so often, you gain an armor break on you. But as we went over in the start, even if I lost the tempo of this fight, right, I'm doing a good job at keeping tempo on this fight, putting out the damage. Also, while doing this fight, I want you to remember one thing. All of my crits damage are cut in half. So that's actually a 14k crit right there. I just want everyone to like realize that. That should be a 15k crit, stuff like that. And every single reparry I do is an extra 2,000 to 3,000 damage. So that's also just, it adds on. It's a bunch of chip damage throughout the fight, basically, for him. It basically is more damage for him when I parry than... I do more damage to him than he does to me when I parry by a fair bit. So it's a really cool interaction, that one. But yeah, so the reason why I like Colossus for this, Colossus is what I used for every single run for exploration. I used like a rank 4 Hyperion to like go at this for the first try, which was not the prettiest. So the reason why I don't think like Warlock and like Gully are like the best options is if you lose tempo for a single moment, which right there I should have been given an armor break. And if I'm Warlock, I lose my armor, and he threw an SP1, so I have a plasma detonation, now I'm dead. But with Warlock or Colossus, you never have to worry about the armor break, because you're armor break immune, because Havoc isn't a tech. I'm sorry for getting their names mixed up there. And Colossus, while he doesn't have any power control, which this fight is good if you have power control because he gets Extinction Protocol, which gives extra power gain. He has passive power gain enhancement. By the way, that crit right there should be 120,000 crit. I just realized that from this fight. So he hits stupid hard with only a single synergy. A lot of people try to like give him stick for that, like he needs a full team to carry him around. But really, you're just kind of slapping two champions in the middle of any other team. This Nick Fury is another one that I used. Colossus, in my opinion, has to be one of the MVPs for me for my Act 6 100%. I used him a ton, especially like in 6.3 for like these bosses. I used him for literally all 5 paths of exploration for Nick Fury and Havoc. Every single path I brought Colossus and Omega Red because they covered that much ground by just being a duo. Like, look, I just reparry a ton, so I gain an armor up buff every time. And I don't have the stun, but I'm still hitting very, very hard even without the Fury. It's a 10k crit. I go for the SP3 here in just a second because I want to show how you can use the Unstoppable to bank off of him. And so yeah, with the reparries, you give him power, which makes you easily able to bait the SP2s, and you're able to control your debuffs very well with Colossus in this fight because you don't have any debuffs on your base kit anyway, because right, that fatigue is a passive, so now even if I get hit, he won't really crit. And if you see that, I don't lose any ground here, so I'm able to go in after the SP1, where sometimes it's a bit risky to do that. It'd be nice if that Unstoppable effect lasted longer, but it doesn't. And also another thing for this fight specifically is if you hit his block, it applies like 4 to 6 bleeds on you. So if you hit his block, you'll also gain a lot of armors usually. Those armor ups that it said were not from me hitting his block. Those were ones that were falling off, converting into permanent armors. At this point, I have the 20 permanent armor up buffs on me, so I never have to really worry about that. And I just dropped a casual 20k medium without my Fury on my heavy reliant champion. I don't think he requires his stuns. It obviously helps, right? Like, I think I show it in some of the other clips, when you throw a heavy with him, he easily can hit like 70k, 90k heavies with like pretty few armors. Like at this 20 armor ups, he can easily hit those types of numbers, and it's absolutely silly, but he still doesn't need it, right? Like, I have my 30 armor up buff, so when I get to hit him, if he throws his SP2, like, look, it's 5k mediums without a crit, which it's obviously not the highest damage in the game, right? Like, but a 5k medium without a crit is very, very high for most champions. Most champions at rank 5, not most champions, A lot of champions cannot achieve that without a lot of ramp up, where I'm only 50 hits into this fight. So it's not even that bad of a ramp up to get to that type of point, and I've basically had that damage since probably like 20 hits in, if I have to be honest. I didn't quite keep track, and I'm almost through what was a pretty annoying Nick Fury when it came out. You had to like deal with your debuff management and stuff. So this is the last fight, I think. So it's the Nick Fury boss, which is in 3.1 of this month's CAV-EQ. I was just like literally exploring it tonight, and I was like, oh, I remember some people asking about this fight, so I was like, hey, I'll just throw this fight in here, because Colossus seemed to work very well for it when I was reading the nodes. So the surge charges, you want to throw your specials more often than he throws his. So bringing Emma Frost would have been very helpful, honestly, because you just gain a lot of extra power. But it doesn't, you're not required to bring her for this type of fight, because I'm able to confidently throw it because of the unblockable there, and even without the Fury, I hit a 31k crit with only 11 armor ups, because Colossus is a monster. 10k crits on your mediums with only 10 armor ups. He just hits so hard, so quickly into the fight. There's a lot of people who, for the past like year now, have kind of been on this like Colossus hate train, and I just don't see it. Like, he's not the best champion for sure anymore. If you're like super endgame, yeah, there's probably a better option for this fight. There's probably some better options for other fights at this point. But I think for any progressing player, Colossus is an amazing tool to have. Such a valuable champion, so much damage, so many immunities, which when you're growing in this game, immunities are such a big thing. So that'll just about do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Colossus is a champion, kind of like Longshot, that I enjoy a lot. I think Colossus is super valuable to a lot of rosters just for immunities and damage. And he rinses a lot of fights that are kind of annoying. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope it didn't go on too long. I hope you guys have a good one. And I'll be seeing you soon. Have a good one. Bye.